thank you very much for joining us, Selina. Hello, welcome to Diversity Network, and we're so pleased to be speaking with you today. To start off with, I'd just like to ask you about your belief that Black women have grown up with a different mindset about money. Was that the reason why you set up your financial coaching company, Black Girl Finance?
Yeah, so it's one of the reasons. So I'm from a Black Caribbean background. My mum and dad both were born Caribbean. So my mum's from St. Lucia, my dad's from Barbados, and they both came here as teenagers. And yeah, from particularly, I grew up with my mum, but particularly from her culture, not talking about money was very much the norm. So yeah, and when I wrote the book, Black Girl Finance book, and she read an extract of the book, she kind of called me up and she was like, do you know what, Selina? When you were younger, you just did not talk to your children about money, and you didn't tell them your age. So we didn't know our parents' age until we got much older. And then also no conversations about money. Those were the rules from her culture. And that's what she's told me. So I also relay in the book the fact that when I was about 10 years old, I asked her, I said, Mum, how much do you earn? And she gave me the look that said, do not ask that question. So yeah, definitely something in it. And since writing the book, again, I've had so many women, from a Caribbean background in particular, message me to say, hi, I'm from St. Lucia, I'm from Barbados, and it's exactly the same. It was exactly the same in my household. So I think there is something there. We can't obviously generalize, Black women and from different backgrounds have different experiences, but it tends to hold true, I'd say, with the majority of women that I've spoken to so far since running Black Girl Finance.
And that would have quite an impact on women's views about money, wouldn't it? And about their earning and their whole approach to saving. It's clearly a deep passion for you, because in less than 2 years, you've gone from being a senior account executive in a tech company to writing an Instagram page about money, to setting up a financial coaching company and publishing a book.
Wild 2 years.
Did you face any challenges along the way?
Yes. So I'd say the very first person that I told about my idea for creating Black Girl Finance, they weren't very positive about it. So they were kind of like, well, why do women need to talk to a woman? Why do they need a special place, or a Black women? Why do they need a special place to talk about money? They can just go and see an advisor. So that very initial conversation where I'm like really excited, saying, yeah, I'm going to create this platform and having the idea kind of shot down, wasn't a great start. But I continued, I persevered, because I just knew that within my own experience, talking about money was just not the norm. So I just wanted to create a safe space to be able for women to be able to talk about money. Whether or not they came once the platform was created was another thing. I couldn't really predict that, although I did do some market research. I did do a quick survey on Instagram just to say, hi, take part in the survey. What do you like? What's the best way of where do you go to find out about money? Do you go to Instagram? Do you go to YouTube, and so on and so forth? So I did a mini survey, and then I launched. So that was kind of that wasn't an obstacle. That was kind of I guess overcoming the naysayers a bit. There was that, and just managing the two. So when I initially started, I was working full time, trying to do a bit of studying on the side as well. So yeah, just juggling everything basically was a bit of a challenge, and finally making the decision to just do Black Girl Finance full time. Again, going from being someone who's always been employed, always had an employer telling me or guiding my day-to-day activities, to making those decisions myself and being in full control of everything. That's definitely been a shift. But challenges, I don't know. I'm still going through the process.
Well, in your book, also called Black Girl Finance, you state that the UK economy is losing more than £26 billion every year because of discrimination against ethnic minorities. Are you positive at all about the future for Black women in the financial industry?
I try to be really positive. I'm a glass half full type of person anyway. So that's kind of like the theme. I feel like there are things that we can do individually to, you know, if we've made money mistakes, to get better with handling money. You know, if you, and I encourage women, or I encourage the people that I coach, that if if there's ever an area that they're unsure about, to go away and do some research about it, and maybe speak to someone as well. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful, because it's not just me doing this type of work. I'm in I know a great circle of other women doing similar things, trying to encourage people to talk about money, and trying to encourage them to handle money in the best way possible. So I'm really encouraged by the people who are doing a similar work to me. So it's not just me. So yeah, it makes me more hopeful than previously, whereby we didn't speak about money.
And I suppose now you're actually doing something about it as well.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your platform, you've got your Instagram, and you've got your book. That will make a change for people at the grassroots level,
Yeah.
you know, with their own personal finances. And are you able to comment on the industry as a whole? Do you know very much about Black women in the financial sector? Are you able to comment about the future for you know, for women in that sector?
I can't kind of comment overall about the sector, to be honest with you, but I just know that since creating the platform, I'm more aware of Black women who are actually in the sector and doing work. So whether they are accountants or, you know, investment managers. So my eyes are more privy to people that look like me within the space now. I'd say, you know, go back. I recount in my book that I was thinking about doing economics A level, but I didn't, because there was just no frame of reference back then, which is a while ago when I was thinking about doing my A levels. But now I do feel like there are more women who are more visible, creating platforms, who actually work within the industry. And also, one of the things I did last year was, sorry, not last year, this year, we did Black Girl Finance Festival, which was a day-long event where I wanted to really highlight those women within the industry. So we had 13 different speakers, 13 different panelists who either work in the industry, some of them were accountants, investment managers, and so on and so forth, and also YouTubers, because I think we're all very different, and the way that we absorb information about money, we all kind of like to get that information in different ways. So I wanted to put on an event whereby there were different flavors for different people, if that makes sense. So I think I'm now, my aim is to make those women more visible, basically.
And I suppose that has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? You know, it promotes Black women in the industry, but then also Black women's personal finances as well. They'll feel more confident about those, and then also younger women who might be choosing economics A level, maybe they will now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the idea. I think for me, one of the things I want to do in the future with the platform is to really highlight the possibility of a career in finance, because like I said, I'm now cognizant of women being within that space, whereas probably like 10 years ago, I didn't know anybody. So
And is it true, when you were writing your Instagram page originally, you couldn't find any really powerful quotes from Black women in finance to put on your page?
No, I really couldn't. I really struggled. I really struggled. And also, just to say as well, I'm a massive reader of personal finance books, always have been. And initially, there were lots of personal finance books written by US men, you know, all of the kind of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know, Think and Grow Rich, all of those books that I kind of read when I was a bit younger. And then slowly I got introduced to some UK female written books, so British authored books about personal finance. And even up to last year, I couldn't find a personal finance book written by a Black UK woman. And the reason why it's significant is because, you know, in the UK, we have ISAs, we have pensions. In the US, we have, you know, 401ks and Roths. And I was reading these kind of Americanized books and thinking, you know, you get to that chapter on, 401ks, and you're kind of like, okay, this is not relevant to me. So up until last year, there were no personal finance books written by Black UK women. This year we've got 2. So you've got my book, and there's also an author called Bola Soul as well. So I'm really happy, because when I first created the platform, it was on my to-do list to write a Black girl personal finance book, because I noticed that there was this gap. And like I say, I get loads of messages saying, oh, I'm just reading your book, people posting me reading the book on the beach. I never thought I'd see the personal finance book being read on the beach. But yeah, it's really made that money conversation a lot more accessible to a lot of people who perhaps wouldn't have known where to go to get the information. And also as well, another thing that I do as part of the platform is do that introduction, because there is that advice gap that exists. So speaking to people, and I speak to so many different women at so many different stages. So there'll be some who are just leaving university, some who are a bit older and have got assets and built up assets, but you'd be surprised how many have never spoken to a financial advisor, because it's just not the norm. There's no frame of reference. So again, I feel like it's my duty to be like, okay, you're in this position, maybe speak to an expert and get that expert advice. So yeah, so that's something I also do with the platform.
That's a real pioneer, Selina. You really are forging the way. And as you say, on different levels as well, in the book, which is a very accessible book, isn't it? It's not a dry, dusty financial
No,
tome.
I didn't want it to
It's got
be.
a pink cover.
Yes.
It's a bold title.
Yeah.
And I think you're making a big difference. Well, leading on from that, is it true that there are more CEOs of FTSE 100 companies called Steve or David than there are CEOs who are women or from ethnic minorities put together?
Yes, that was the stat when I was writing the book. And even recently, I think as recently as February, I saw something in the news that said that there were no people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds as part of the FTSE 100, no one on the boards as well. And that was just as recently as February. So I don't know if we've moved backwards slightly, yeah, it was kind of quite shocking when I read that in February. So, yeah.
It's quite a depressing statistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you found any companies which are trying to redress the balance and employing fewer Daves and Steves and more Selinas?
I've had really interesting conversations since starting the platform. I have had like a CEO reach out to me from a major bank, just asking how can we move things forward? How can we? And it wasn't just about getting more senior leaders from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds on their board. It was about how can we reach those customers, because they were saying that the majority of their customer base were over 50. Tends to be white as well with that particular bank and CEO. So I think that they're quite cognizant of needing to, I guess, change and appeal to a broader, customer base. But one of the things that they really said that was really touching was the fact that they know that their products and services can help people to achieve their lifestyle. So it wasn't just about their bottom line, it was about getting people to achieve their goals, their financial goals, and helping people to do that. So I think that's a lovely kind of sentiment. They were talking about potentially having like a shadow board. So I think that there are a lot of banks that are doing things. I know that at this time banks do not need to report kind of ethnic minority data reporting. They don't need to report that, but there are some banks that are going ahead and doing that anyway, and I think that's a good thing. So I think Lloyds TSB is one example, and I think that's a good thing. That's a positive thing to start measuring, so that you can know where you can begin. Basically, if you're not measuring, how many people you have on boards and so on and so forth, then why would you start if you don't know where you want to go? So I think it's positive.
Yeah, statistics are important, aren't they? Especially in D&I, where it can be difficult to quantify, but then, if you can measure it, then that's an important thing, isn't it? So Lloyds perhaps is forging ahead. Any other companies or organisations you know of, Selina, that are doing good work in this area?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay,
I'm
no
not too
problem.
sure anymore.
Well, you were saying before about you speak to lots of different women at different stages of their lives, and Black female graduates are paid on average 9% less than white female graduates, a figure you quoted in your book. And at the end of their working life, Black pensioner families receive almost £200 less every week than white pensioner families. In what ways do you believe that diversity and inclusion leaders can help close that gap as an employer?
Yeah, so I think definitely by just ensuring equal opportunities and equal pay. So, I mean, you've probably seen the statistics around. I mean, there was a report just last week that said that in terms of, I think, applying for pay rises, I think it may have been pay rises or job opportunities within the business. Um, I think people from white backgrounds were 40% more likely to get that pay rise, and that, maybe increased job role or higher job role, whereas people from Black age minority backgrounds were only at 20%. So just making sure that there's that equity across the board for everybody. Everyone has the same sort of opportunities. So it's not just about getting people from diverse backgrounds in the door when they're there. It's about giving them the opportunities, and I guess getting rid of that old boys kind of network that has previously existed, or and in some organisations for sure still exists. So just making sure that they have networks in place, making sure that when they are sourcing candidates, that they go to organisations that are going to give them a diverse range of candidates. But yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to be done, because reading that statistic just last week, it's quite disappointing to think that people aren't getting the same opportunities as everybody else.
Yes, and speaking for working people as a whole, but then I suppose specifically in the financial sector, there is that stigma of the old traditional
Yeah.
boys club, isn't there? And so perhaps the financial sector in particular is one that could improve. Do you think it is the sole responsibility of diversity and inclusion leaders to turn those figures around? Is it others' responsibility as well?
Yeah, I think everyone should be responsible, and when we go into a workplace, we're part of that organization. We make up that organization. Everyone does an important job regardless of what it is. And I truly believe that. So whenever I'm doing workshops, and I have workshops around asking for that pay rise and thinking about your career, um, I emphasize how important each and every single role is within an organization. So I think everyone can play their part. Obviously, people who are part of the D&I networks are at the forefront. But yeah, everyone, even if you're not part of that network, you should be supporting the work that they are doing. Yeah, I think everyone can make a difference and have an impact.
And I suppose it's a team effort, isn't it? And one that will benefit everybody as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Another really interesting statistic that was in your book, Black Girl Finance, is that Black, African, and Bangladeshi households in the UK only have 10% of savings and assets compared with every £1 of white British wealth. What advice would you give to a young Black person concerned about their finances?
I would say prioritize it. So even if you've grown up in a household like me that didn't necessarily talk about money, I'd say definitely prioritize it. Think about it. So I talk about personal finance as being sometimes having to go on a personal finance journey to figure out, okay, what is it that you don't really understand, and learn about it. Be curious. I feel like it's getting more okay, particularly if someone's millennial or Gen Z. I think it's getting more okay to talk about money and be more open about it. So yeah, definitely use that and start having conversations. And maybe if you can't have conversations about money within your household, speak to friends and people that you trust. But yeah, definitely talk about it. And another thing I would say, when you're going through your workplace and you're going through your career, definitely we like to do a lot of prep when we're going through that initial job interview, or maybe we're going for an interview, within an organization that we've been in for some time. I'd say definitely have a think about money, have a think about salary, do some research around salary. I think that's super important, as well as just kind of put yourself forward and think about how best you can get the job, because you want to make sure that you're being remunerated for the job to the correct level. And the reason why that's important is because of those statistics that you mentioned around kind of pensions. Well, a lot of the pension schemes that we have within workplaces are, you're paying a percentage of what you earn, and if you're earning less, you're going to be paying in less, which is less money that's going to benefit from that snowballing effect, that compounding effect, sorry, over the long term. So it's really, really important. I think it definitely feeds into the lack of wealth. I think it's an issue that feeds into the lack of wealth within those communities, that kind of pay disparity. So yeah, thinking about money when you're going through your career is important.
And from the other side, many of the people listening will be D&I leaders and HR people. What would your message to them be? If they're employing a young graduate or anyone actually of colour, can you give them any advice from an employer's perspective?
Yeah, so the Foresight Society are doing a great campaign called, I think it's called hashtag don't ask me what I previously earned, something like that. Probably not, it's not that wording, but it's something like that, because if you start off on a low pay initially, that kind of carries you, goes through with you throughout your career. So for example, if I'm constantly asked at every step of the way, okay, how much do you earn, how much were you previously earning, and I'm earning a lower wage, and you're just accepting that lower wage, I won't ever be able to make up that difference. So definitely, I guess, getting rid of that kind of asking, okay, how much did you earn? Just set that fair salary for everybody. And if you want to give bonuses, fine. And if you want to give people opportunities to earn more than that salary, great. But I think setting a benchmark where it's just, this is what you get paid, I think that's a good start. And again, just giving everyone the opportunity to thrive and put themselves forward as well.
So you'll be more in favour of a sort of transparent band pay structure in organisations, and that's a fairer way to approach salary remuneration for all employees.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously things like blind CVs and so on and so forth, so you're not weighed, so there's no unconscious bias as it's described.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's important, isn't it? Unconscious bias, especially when it comes to salary and job interviews and employing new employees. Well, you set up a financial coaching company, you've written a book, and you present a weekly podcast. What's next for you, Selina?
So we're planning the second Black Girl Finance Festival event. So again, I think my motto is, whichever way someone's going to consume the information, I want to be able to make it accessible. So if someone loves to read a book or listen to an audiobook, there's the book. If someone likes to get the information through a podcast, there's the podcast. If someone likes to get the information through an event, we're planning our next Black Girl Finance Fest event. Also going to be launching some courses as well, and also some training, so to give people an opportunity to perhaps become a finance coach as well. So there's lots going on, lots planned for the future.
You're keeping busy.
Yes.
And any, as you mentioned, training, any particular training for employers or HR or D&I people? Have you thought about that?
I haven't thought about that, to be honest. You just give me an idea.
I think that would be very valuable. You're a pioneer in your field, aren't you, and an expert, and also you speak to many women, many employees, don't you? And so so I think that could be really valuable for people in HR and D&I to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do that through other organisations. So I'm going to be on another panel event on Thursday. Just through someone else. So I do it kind of through someone else, but yeah, it's not my own thing. So maybe that's give me food for thought.
And finally, what does inclusion and diversity mean to you, Selina?
Oh, I just think equal opportunity for everybody. I know that I talk about for Black women, but I want it for everybody. You know, regardless of gender, ethnicity, you know, ability. I just want it for everybody. So I think we all deserve it.
That's a very powerful statement, and it's obviously a real passion of yours. You've turned an interest of yours and your own personal experience into something really important. So really thrilled to have spoken to you today. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Listen to your podcast, and those facts were so powerful, Selina. They're
Yeah.
very depressing.
I know.
I can't believe it. I really can't. As a white person, you just feel like I cannot believe this has been. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Around the world, you know, I'm in the US here, but it's terrible, isn't it? You know, considering the makeup of the workforce, the percentage of different people in the workforce, that's just not reflected in anything, is it? Pay or the number of people where, you know, at higher levels. It's really so we're very lucky to have people like you who are powering the cause.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. That's another thing. I did some research before I kind of created the platform as well, and it was like, okay, I know it's depressing, and I always say it's not to depress you, because I know sometimes, you know, someone might see the stat and be like, oh my gosh, there's no point. But, you know, hopefully with the book and the way it's written and the podcast as well, it's encouraging. I want people to feel empowered, basically. That's what I try to do, even though there's these statistics. So I think I'm doing okay so far.
Oh yes, yeah, and you're making such a difference at an individual level, aren't you? And that's really important, isn't it? That's where it's got to start, isn't it? And thank you so much, Selina.
Yeah, take care.
Nice to
Enjoy the
talk
rest
to
of the
you.
day. You too.
Thank you, and you.
Bye.